working on installing these two Mueller units on that big 12,000 litre tank. It's going to be used for chilling water. Got the suction lines off of there. I just bent the U-bend with the REMS bender because it would do a 180-degree bend. And the expansion valves are on the actual units. So this is like an expansion line, and that's almost part of the evaporator. I think that's how they claim they get more duty out of it, because they use the whole evaporator surface for cooling rather than part of it being used for superheating. So there's no expansion valves or anything on the tank. Anyway, so we've got them done. Made all this framework because it's a concrete building with crinkly tin, so there's nothing to fix to. I didn't want to put anything on the floor because people would trip over it. So I've got some cantilever arms and braced them, and then made a little ladder for my pipe clips, and I've been using these, well, they used to be these closure clips, which were really good. I bought a socket for doing them because they were 1/2 inch semi-deep socket, so you can get in between two clips. And now Pump House have started doing copy parts of them where the thread's longer, so my socket's no good anymore. They don't fit in the channel as well, so like everything, it's all turning to shit really. I mean, by all means copy something, but at least make it as good as the thing you're copying. The metal's thinner on them. The platings, I mean, you go back to some of these things that have been in 10 years, there's no rust on them at all. When you go back to these things, you know. Anyway, enough of that. Yeah, so they're coming across like that. Brought that one down, another U-bend. Previously it went straight up the front, but I thought I'll keep that clear of the electrical cabinet, so you can work on it if you need to. So I've got the other suction line drop down there. That's going to come out and round into that, but I think we'll knock it on the head for today. I got the fan blade turned round on, I think it was the bottom one. One of them, the blades was on backwards. One of them's got that HP switch has been bypassed. As far as I can figure, they had these style LP switches originally. That's gone on from this one, and they've put this one on there. I think that was the fan cycling pressure switch that would turn the fan off at 200 psi and bring it back on about 270, something like that, 260. And then this one was your HP switch, which goes off at 400, cuts back in at 300-ish. That I think has failed on both of them, which is why they've put that Ranco one. I think that was doing the job of the fan cycling switch, but I think this one, the HP switches, no, this one, the HP switch has failed, and they've just chopped it out and wired the fan cycling switch as an HP switch. So this one, the fan must run continuous, so we'll have to sort that out. That one had a Duff accumulator in there that must have rotted out, so I've took that out, got it out of the way. So I've got a hot gas line that's got to come over and drop onto there, because previously it went off to the heat recovery, so we just put a little loop in that. We've got to change the oil in there. There's not a lot of oil in there actually, so we're going to take it off, drain the oil out and put fresh. This one I think has got mineral oil in it, so we definitely need to do that one. So I will probably cut the pipework somewhere like here and here, and then we can just put a coupler in there, and we'll have to lift it off and tip it on its side and drain the oil out that way, and then just pump back in. We can pump it back in through here, however much comes out. Actually, if it's got the factory oil, 70 something, whatever that is, 70 something or others. If I can find the spec, I might just tip it the factory charge in there. It's probably sort of like 1.5 litres or something. Because it could be short. I mean, that's a replacement compressor. It might have too much in there. Depends how it's, you know, what went wrong with it. But this one, the heat recovery had failed on it, so it may well have lost some oil in the leak in the heat recovery previously. But yeah, it's coming together. We've got the control panel going to go on the wall. Get a bit of timber put up. Get that panel on the wall. But, yeah, it's coming together. Back again on a Sunday. Anyway, got the bottom suction line in. That's around sort of fairly in line. Just tweak it out a bit maybe. It's only visual, it's functionally good. Then we're just doing the, keep wanting to call it the liquid line, but it's probably the expansion line because the expansion valve is in the condensing unit. So it's not a liquid line, it must be an expansion line, I think I've seen them called. Anyway, so we've got some Armaflex on there, so we can sort of eyeball it that it's in between the two lined up. So then up there we can mark that where we need to cut it to swage it, and then I'll put, what have I done with them there? Down there in the bucket. I've got some yellow cotton dusters because they don't burn even if they dry out. I'll wrap the Armaflex, both of them, with one of them that's damp, and that way if the heat gets on it, it's not going to burn the Armaflex. And I might put one near the clip so that if the heat travels down, it don't melt the plastic. And that'll do. And then I think once that's in place, because it's only 3/8, it's so flexible, we'll be able to get in there and bending it with the little hand benders. They will just, I mean, they'll cope with it, but there's not a lot of leverage on the handles. I think we are going to kick it out like this, bend it along here, which we might come along a bit higher, so it's at the same height as that. Then we can just do another little U, fairly tight, so it's not too congested in here for getting into these caps and things. Anyway, that's the plan. I resisted getting a laser level for years just because they're not overly cheap, and you know, I didn't see the need of one. But since I've got it, it's more than pays for itself. For simple little things like this, I want to bend that pipe the same height as this, and you set your laser level up. You set your green line up here, and there we are. That's where we know where the bend's got to be. Same with this for the dropping these down. I just set the laser level up, and you can get the drop perfectly straight. Same for putting the framework up. I set it up there, and we had a line across all the three beams where to drill the holes. So yeah, they're well worth getting. And I've got the green laser because it's supposed to be better to see in daylight than the red one. But yeah, it's pretty good. Batteries last ages. I've got some rechargeable ones to put in there, so. But you'll probably get, you know, a day out of it, I would think. Anyway. Okay, just got the pipework finished onto the units. So we just come down and kicked it out a bit and run it sort of parallel and looped it round. Got enough room to get in there. Shouldn't have to get in there unless something gone wrong with it, but no, let's just come down. And then we'll probably put some Armaflex tape and just tie them together. A cable tie or something. Tape it first and then put a cable tie around the outside. Same over here. Loop a bit of Armaflex round and then put a cable tie around there. Okay, come with what I showed before. I've got the pipework onto the units. I've linked the hot gas across on this one, because previously it was going across to where it went to the heat recovery, which anyway we're not using. So we've put that loop in there. We've got the bottom compressor lifted off, because this one I think is mineral, I can't even say the words now, mineral oil, 70 something or others. I wouldn't have thought that'd be 70 fluid ounces, because that would be quite, yeah, that'd be 2 litres. It might be 70 fluid ounces. I'm not sure with these. Yeah, it might be, because I've known them take 1.8-ish litres. It's quite a big. It's 5 horsepower. It's a 5 horsepower, biggish compressor. Anyway, we're going to tip it on its side and see what we can get out of the suction pipe. You know, we don't know what's around the system. Some oil come out of the pipes at the back of the tank when we cut them, and a load of oil could have come out when we degassed it. That's one of the reasons I'm keen to check it now, because half a litre or something could have come out with the when we decommissioned it, and because we're not putting the same gas back in, it could then end up being low. And that one's got no sight glass, so at least this one's got an oil level sight glass on it. Okay, I've got the compressor back in, bolted down. They were a bit tricky to do. These bolt holes were, you know, a couple of millimetres off, so whether the original compressor has a different footprint, I don't know. Got that joined up. I've used couplers, so we haven't altered the length of the pipe, so it's as good as it was, which is, well, make your own mind up about that. It's been repiped because that's the original accumulator, so the original compressor's gone and they've repiped it. Obviously didn't have any benders, so they've made use of fittings. I don't know what it would have had. I think it probably would have had a reciprocating compressor. I don't think it would have had a scroll on it from new. Yeah, so then we've got this one to do, but we should just be able to unbolt this because it's got rotor locks on there. As long as you've got a new gasket, you can undo them. At a push, you can I have reused them in the past, but I wouldn't recommend it. The gaskets, they're kind of a one use only. Yep. Anyway, so need to make a note there's no oil in this before we turn it on, although it's not wired yet, and that's the control box for it. That's not fitted yet, so but yeah, I've got enough oil on the van. I might fill this one up, yeah, because I can fill it through that port there. And then this one we've got a sight glass, so we can just fill it up till we've got a good oil level. Okay, I've got my old NRS book out from '97. CRNQ 0500, 5 horsepower, oil charge 2 litres. So that was, the 70 was 70 fluid ounces. That may well be an American compressor, because I think, because it's an American design tank, well I think Mueller is a American company. I think the agent used to get some of the spares from the States. Some of the big single phase compressors they used to use we couldn't get here. Anyway, I don't know, it's 2 litres, whatever. So we got 1.6 litres out with 400 mil short, which is about, what's a pint? About 500 mil, isn't it, or something? So it's a fair bit. So we might put 1.8 in there or something, because there could be a couple 100 mil in the tank. There might be some in the accumulator. Because even if there's nothing else in the whole system, 1.8 would probably be enough. It would probably be nearer. minimum than maximum, but with no sight glass you're just guessing. There might even be 100ml left in there that we couldn't tip out, so anyway, I don't want to put too much in there. Something like that, 1.8, 1.9 litres or something. And that one we can just do with the sight glass, that'll be easier. Okay, I've got the oil drained out of that. We've got 1.2 litres. Looks a bit, well, yeah, it looks lighter colour than the mineral oil, but the mineral oil is usually a darker sort of golden colour. Some of the ester oil is like water, it's clear. That little bit of colour might be residual mineral oil from the previous compressor. We got 1.2 litres out of it, and this should have 1.9, 64 fluid ounces. So we'll measure it in there, but we'll just fill it up until we get a nice level on the sight glass. I'd rather run them near the maximum than the minimum level. I might just put enough in there to run it, and then run it up and see if some oil comes back from the tank, because I've got a little hand pump that will pump it in against the gas pressure. So that one we're just going to dump. I might put 2 litres in it actually. I mean, if you put a brand new compressor on there, it's going to come with 2 litres in. At least we know it's got the right amount in there, and if there's a bit more around the system, then there we are. When we took this out, we did put some water in it, I think, and run the cooling, so it should have, and we've run it for a while, I think, so it should have warmed up and got the oil back if any had come out when it started. It's not helped because, I mean, somebody's cut the leads off the crankcase heater. The one on this one's faulty, so I've got to get 2 new crankcase heaters for them. That one I'm just going to get a wraparound one, because I doubt you can even buy those as a spare part anymore, because these are obsolete here. The piston, Copeland don't sell any hermetic piston compressors here anymore. It's all scrolls basically, and they do very few semi-hermetics now, which is a shame, because they used to be pretty bomb-proof if you're putting something in that's going to be in for years. Anyway, enough wittering. Okay, I can't remember if I filmed any of this or not. Anyway, I've got some framework pipework. Comes off the tank. I'm going to just put some Armorflex tape around it and then a cable tie around the outside of the Armorflex just to keep them together. They shouldn't go anywhere. I've got a bit of tube up there. So I might put a cable tie around it just to take the weight. It's just running flex, which is how they do their stuff. So monkey see, monkey do. So we run that along into the box. I've put a bit of cable tray up the side for the 2 compressors. I've got to put a high pressure switch on this one. I've got to put oil in both of them. We've put wraparound crankcase heaters on there because that was busted, and that one's just been cut off. So I've got my HP switch on this one. Dryer. I might put a sight glass in there just out of curiosity. Okay, not sure how far I got with filming this. We've got it all piped and wired the other day. Come back, I've changed the dryers. Top one's been pressure tested fine. Then we had it on vacuum, and it was doing really well. And then I heard the tone change on the vac pump, and vacuum started flying up. And it turned out it was this tap leaking on these gauges, leaking around the threads. Just suddenly let go. Anyway, I've got those valved off. the moment, so we're just pulling through the big blue hose and we're down to 1500. So that's that. Crankcase heater's done. Got the oil put into both compressors. One of them had mineral oil in it, so we've changed that. We've extended the cable on the crankcase heaters. Got those wired in. I've put a sight glass in here. Well, technically these shouldn't have a sight glass, or don't need one, and you certainly don't use them for charging. I think they're critically charged, like a mini split basically, as far as I can tell from what I've read. But I just thought it would be interesting to see if it was dry, and also I'm going to watch it as I charge it to see if it does actually fill up, because I'd assume it should be full, because it's got an expansion valve on there. But I'm just as much for my own curiosity as anything. We've got a HP switch which we've fitted here. That's going to do the fan cycling, because the fan cycling one's failed, and then the HP one I think failed, and they've repurposed the one they put on to do fan cycling to be the HP switch. Looking at the diagram, it's listing a VSD, so I've got a feeling they should have a variable speed drive on there as well, and it's like the HP switch is a backup if the VSD fails, because it's sort of run across it like parallel, so either one would bring the fan on. So I might recommend they put some variable speed drives on there, but they'll probably have to be something bigger than I keep on the van, because that's a fairly... I'll have to check the run current on that motor. I don't know if the little solid state Danfoss ones I keep would be... I don't know, I probably haven't got two anyway, would be big enough to run that motor. Quite often the bigger ones you end up getting those, the Danfoss as well, but they're Saginaw Meyer, which I think Danfoss bought out. But they're a separate little box with a capillary that you pipe off, and they'll take sort of 6 or 8 amps as opposed to 2 or 3. Anyway, that's that. So we've got the crankcase heaters wired in. We've wired that in. The bottom one is on pressure test at the moment, and it lost a bit and then stabilised. Yeah, 1.2 psi, and then it's levelled off. So we're looking at the box now to put a time clock in there, so it'll only chill the water in the tank overnight, or when they're not got horses here, so 5 o'clock onwards. So what I'm going to do is put that in there, and I've got actually it says it's 24-hour on the box, but looking at it, unless they use the same dial, looking at it, it's a 7-day one, which actually might be handy, because we could put a few more hours on the weekends when they don't use it to catch up if need be. Or even turn it off on the weekends if they don't want to, you know. So we're gonna run that. That is going to interrupt this, which has got, I think it's got 4 terminals on there, but I think we only need to use 3. So we're going to interrupt the cooling signal for each condensing unit, so that even though the tank is telling them to run, they won't run unless the clock says it can go. And they also on these run the agitator signal wire is through the contactor. So that one's probably normally closed, which is probably the crankcase heater, and that one is the agitator signal wire, so it won't paddle unless either one of the compressors or both of them are in. Well, we can run, they are linked on the output, so we can either run them individually, because we've got 4 terminals here, so even if one unit was off for whatever reason, it would still run on the other one. I might do that. Anyway, we've got enough terminals there to link all the feeds to these, so the tank will be asking for cooling, but it won't run until that clock says it can go. That's what we're hoping will work, how it'll work. And then if they don't want any cooling at all, they can just turn it off on the tank and it won't run, but this will still click round, which would be good if they shut it down for whatever reason, because they can leave this powered up and it'll keep the crankcase heaters on. Because at the moment, if the water gets warm, these could be colder than the tank, and all the refrigerant could condense in the compressors. Anyway, yes. So basically, that's on vac. We'll get a good vac in. Probably not far off. Dump some gas in it, a couple of kilos, just to get a bit of pressure in it. Then we'll put the vac pump on the other one while I'm messing about with the wiring. Quality. I'm just looking, I picked a neutral up off that relay. They're using that relay in place of these auxiliaries. They've obviously got to replace the contact when I had any auxiliary contacts, so that's what they're using that one for. Anyway, I've just pulled this out because that's a permanent live, and that's how well that was crimped on. It's just pulled right out. That is fed from, one of these is the cooling breaker, and the other one does the washing, and I think these two are the crankcase heaters. So I was thinking of borrowing a live from that connection, so if the cooling died on the tank it would stop that clock as well. I think it's got a backup, but anyway, by the by. So I thought, yeah, I used a piggyback crimp on that one, so I thought I was going to do something similar, and that's just pulled right out. So yeah, that's quality. Okay, you can see some movement in this, just mostly oil I think blowing through. I'm dumping it in the high side, which there should be liquid going in because I've got the bottle upside down, because I've had a thing with these where the dip tube's not long enough to get all the liquid out. So that should, we've got a kilo in there, kilo and a bit. I might get 2 or 3 kilos in there. I think it's something like 4.5 kilos. We took 4.5 out of one, 4.6 out of one, and 5 out of something out of the other one I think. So that would put us in the ballpark, and I find this 449A takes a little bit more than 22. But haven't got any liquid go past there yet. It's quite a big condenser. I don't know how big the coil is in there. It's got a coil in the accumulator for subcooling, so I don't know how big that is. There's probably not a lot left in that bottle. See what we get in. Okay, just got that to fire up, had a bit of fun. We had a 6 and a 9 on the multi-core ran the wrong way, and the 6 is a live feed, which I think feeds the fan and keeps the fan going even if the compressor's off. Looking at the wiring diagram, it's like it's got a permanent live, or where are we? 6, I think it went to 8 or 9 in here. And the other feed we've got goes through that high pressure switch, which is probably not tripped because we're still on 320 on the high side. Yes. And then it feeds this timer, which we weren't getting any power to. But anyway, that's that. We had some fun. I'm sure the cable between the tank and the box is wrong, because there was about 3 wires where you could not read the numbers. So that might account for some of the issues, because we had all the lights lit up on the front of it like a Christmas tree. Yeah, they're all flashing away. That might be because we've got that other unit tripped out. I'm not sure. I don't know. We've got the overloads popped on there because that one's still full of nitrogen, so we don't want it firing up. Anyway, got that running. The agitator's going round. So, and there's a fair bit of heat coming off of this, so it's doing something. Plenty of oil in there. I've only put about 3.4 kilos, 2.3 kilos in there. So, well, that is fairly hot, that is, so there's obviously no liquid coming back to do any subcooling. That valve may need opening up. Might put a little bit more gas in there, see what it does. Can't actually see the lead on that, it's just about as much. Shut of it. Fair bit of heat coming off, mind you, they need to cut the tin out. There's not enough air in here. It's 22 point something when I turned it on. We're on 21.6. It's half a degree out at least, which is impressive. Okay, we've got all the wires disconnected from the tank interconnecting cable, and we're going to short them out to earth with a Wago. So we're on wire 1 at the moment. and we'll come to this end and we'll confirm that earth and 1 are connected, and then we'll go to 2 and so on. And then we can confirm that 1 and 1 is the same either end, because we've joined it, and where we joined it some of the numbers weren't clear. That might be why we're getting an alarm signal on the panel on the front of the tank, but if we bell this out and we know this is right, then we can be looking somewhere else. Okay, but they all check out okay. The state of this. Yeah, got new stuffing gland in there. Yeah, they all check out. So they were all connected. Where I just spliced them together, they were correct. This end we didn't touch. Where they went in, that was like that from when it was installed. So the only other question is where we joined it in on the cabinet. So we'll confirm that. Make sure we've got them in 6 to where 6 previously was, sort of thing. And then there's probably 4 fuses, I think. On the boards in the box on the front, so we may well have had one of those might have popped when we had the 6 and the 9 crossed on the condenser unit. I don't know. Anyway, it wasn't that wasn't the issue. Okay, found a 1 amp fuse blown in here, so I think that's because we've got the overloads off for the compressors, so they don't run. That's one of them. We don't want that's on a timer. We don't want the other one to come on because we've got a vacuum on it at the moment. So let's get some gas dumped in there because that's down to 800 microns. Dump a couple of kilos in that one, then we can run it up. Well, I just froze my fingers. Just put that on there and just crack that valve to purge it. And the plastic bit's broke and it's stuck open before that was fully nipped up. You can see the frost is still on there. Just luckily I shut the tap up on here. Fucking cheap Chinese fucking gauge lines that wholesalers sell now. When I got them I said, are they any good? Oh yeah, don't have any problems, and nobody said anything, you know. Both of them have got, that one's broke today. I had to wrap it with tape, keep the 2 halves together. What bloody use is that? Anyway, that's what you get buying cheap rubbish. Well, they're not even cheap, they're just fucking rubbish. So yeah, froze my fucking fingers. Thanks to those. We had them a couple of months, probably, well I say couple, probably not up to 6 months. The other ones last, what, 4 or 5 years. I mean, these ones are the old ones that I'm still using. The old CPS ones, they're pretty good. Don't have any trouble with them. Yeah. Right, anyway. Looks like I've got the HP switch winding backwards to the fan. Because it started off, and as the pressure come up, it turned the fan off. So, yeah, idiot. But I picked the wrong 2 terminals then by the look of it. Okay, try again. There we go. Okay. Turn the cooling on. We've run the interconnecting wires straight into the top of that little contactor, and then we've got our purple, brown and white, which should be agitator cooling 1, cooling 2, off of that little Lavato mini contactor, and then if we turn the time clock on, it should pull in. And bring on the cooling, which it's not doing. So we need to go back to the drawing board, I think. When I turned it on, that was on. I'm wondering, it does a 2-minute stir at the end of cooling. I'm wondering if it times out the, locks out the cooling signal while it's doing that. That might be why we've got a flashy light, I don't know. We'll see if it kicks in a minute or two. Yeah, one unit's just come on. See, that light's on permanent now, so I'm wondering whether if it's flashing, it's on a time delay, and then the second unit should kick in. Something like a 20-second delay, which is that one, which I think it should be on now, and it's not. So I need to look at that, see what we've done wrong there. Okay, I've got a switch and a light wired in. If I've done it right, when I turn it on, it should bring that contactor in, and the light should come on. There you go. So that's your time clock bypass. So if we want to make ice at lunchtime, they can turn it on manually, and it'll let the compressors run if they need to. And then normally it would just run at night time when there's no horses about. So that works. Okay, and you've got a manual timer on here, which actually, so they could bring it on with that for half an hour. It's like if the controller fails on the tank, you can get it cooling manually. This must be turned off on here, so if we turn that on, it was on 22 yesterday when we turned it on. It was running a couple of hours, so we turn that on, click that off. I think we might have confused things by trying to do two things at once. Yeah, we've got a timeout. Let's turn that off. Yeah, it's probably doing that 2-minute stir. Yeah, I think we're just a 2-minute stir once the cooling shut off, and I think it stops it starting again for 2 minutes until that's done that little bit. That one is keeping running on that pressure switch because it's off a permanent supply. Looking at this, I think it's supposed to have some variable speed drives. I'm not quite sure because the wiring's been buggered about with both of them. I got a feeling that one the fan should probably run on. Or was it? I know. No, I think this was the one they'd used the what I think was the fan cycling switch as the high pressure switch, I think, on the bottom one, which is why we put a separate fan cycling switch on. I think this one was wide continuous, but then this one appears to be on unless we haven't no, it should be on now because the pressure should be it should be high enough, so it should be run off of that one, I would have thought. I just heard that click. I just heard that one click, so it's obviously not wired in. And when this comes on, the fan comes on, I think straight away. No, no. No, it does cycle. Yeah. I think the other thing that's wrong with this is that's a 6 horsepower compressor. And it should have a 5 on it. So this one's running stupid hot. The scroll, 5 horsepower scroll is probably better than the 5 horsepower SIP anyway.